Anyway, I guess I'm starting because you didn't usually give me the cue beforehand. I'm not even going to let you talk. Not even going to let you talk. I'm Motty, Scotty. Who am I? Started so well. Anyway, like the season probably. Everything just goes to pot in the end. Nearly swore straight away. We're going? We all right? Still laughing? Right. Brilliant. I'm Scotty.
Do you know what it is? Right, we've been thrown because we've got producer Ethan from the Sloppy Joes. He's not sticking around, otherwise would he give him a camera? But go on.
No, sorry. Is he not from Stretford Paddock? Is that not like where he's from?
Well, no, because he's on camera Sloppy Joes, and he's a producer for Stretford Paddock, but he's the most important part of Sloppy Joes.
So is it like Ethan?
He's a vital cog in the wheel of Stretford Paddock.
Yeah,
but he's the only thing that makes Sloppy Joes bearable, to be honest with you.
Right. So it goes Sloppy Joes, Stretford Paddock, Newcastle.
That's his pecking
order of where he's from.
We were talking just before we went live about worst performances ever, because we were talking to producer Ethan about Kennedy, who played for Newcastle, and Ethan was mentioning the time he went to watch Newcastle play Cardiff, and he said Kennedy missed a penalty in the last minute, in the 95th minute, and I was sort of twigging my memory. I said, isn't that the one that everyone classes as the worst performance by a player in Premier League history? Because apparently he had no passes completed in the first half of that game. I don't think he had many in the second half, and then he missed a late penalty. So it got us onto the topic of worst performances and own goals. And again, producer Ethan pointed out that Sunderland scored 3 own goals in 7 minutes once, which was in the first 7 minutes of a match, which was amazing. And then we were talking about our favourite own goals. And one of mine was Phil Jones. I think it was either Villarreal or Valencia, where he scored an absolute belter, where he shrugged off the attacker, opened up his body, and just slotted it past the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
But Jamie Pollock for City was another good one, wasn't it?
It was. I was talking about my dad's one as well.
Go on, tell us about your dad's
my dad used to play for a pub team called the Railway, but he didn't really play because he's no good at football. But someone got injured at right back, so he got called on. It's 0-0 just into the second half. Ball comes over for a corner against his team. My dad scores a scissor kick, own goal, and then celebrates.
Runs off like that.
And then runs off. And then said, "Did you see that?" And they got beat.
Wow. Yeah. What did his teammates say to him, scoring a scissor kick and running against them and running off?
He didn't get back on the pitch.
He didn't, yeah.
No,
that was
or the pub.
But he went out with a bang. And he's bad for life. I love that. Get involved in the chat in the comments. We're going to be talking about United's Ugarte plan. There's an article from our mate Jamie Jackson, JJ, in The Guardian. And he's basically saying, I'm going to sort of summarise it for you. He's saying that United are willing to wait till deadline day for the services of Manuel Ugarte, and if we don't sell someone like Scott McTominay, for example, that doesn't mean United still can't get Manuel Ugarte. It's not necessarily relying on Manchester United selling a load of players. So that seems like a little bit of a positive one. I'll read it out for you now and then you get your thoughts on it. It says Man United are willing to wait till deadline day to try to sign Manuel Ugarte. There does not have to be any outgoings to finance the deal, although PSG's 51 million valuation of the Uruguay midfielder is deemed too high by United, and there is belief that the French champions may reduce it as the deadline nears. So, first of all, what do you think about this brinkmanship idea from Manchester United? Do you think it's a
good tactic.
Move?
I think it's a complete polar opposite from what we'd usually do. What we'd usually do is say, how much do you want? Well, we'll just pay more. I mean, they've got examples of that with the Marouane Fellaini at the beginning of the post-Ferguson years, where they could have got him for an amount and then ended up paying nearly double.
Scotty, right? How was David Moyes meant to know what deal Marouane Fellaini was on at Everton?
Yeah, it's true. It's not like he managed him from the club.
It's not like he was there for 10 years and he probably was there when he signed that deal.
Yeah, there's definitely not a photograph of him signing.
No, come on, you can't expect Moyes to know that. Yeah, so you're right. We do have this brinkmanship. And the brinkmanship usually involves Leicester City saying we want 80 million for Harry Maguire. United going 80 million for Harry Maguire. Are you insane? And then Leicester go, actually, you're right. We want 80 million plus 5 million add-ons. And United go, okay then.
Yeah.
Or Crystal Palace, we want 50 million for Wan-Bissaka. I'll tell you one thing, Manchester United are not paying 50 million for Wan-Bissaka. Certainly not for another 7 days. Then we'll pay it.
Yeah.
That tends to be how Manchester United do
Alexis
business.
Sanchez, do you want $500,000 a week or whatever it was?
Yeah, $500,000 a week. We're not giving you $500,000 a week. All right, then we'll give you $500,000 a week. Yeah, it's how it goes, but it's different thinking, a different approach under Ineos. How do you feel so far about... Miss Man United in the chat, good to see her. About how Ineos have gone about their business?
I'm absolutely over the moon with it, to be honest. From everything from Sir Jim Ratcliffe quite happily to sit in front of a camera and face press interviews. What?
Go on. I don't like this positive, Scotty.
Well, I'm a very positive chap. It's a new dawn. Yeah, so I'm very happy about that.
Straight face when you said that.
I'm trying my hardest.
Well.
I'm trying my hardest.
And then when you got to have a really positive chat, you smirked.
Yes, I know, because the back of my head, I can't even convince myself. Life's shit, right? But I'm very happy about Ineos. Yeah, you fucking eyed.
There he is.
I'm trying my hardest to have put a nice sheen on it, but you can't polish a turd, as my dad used to say. Right, yeah, I'm very happy about Ineos and everything they're doing behind the scenes. The management movement regarding our CEOs and stuff like Dan Ashworth and Wilcox, that looks very positive. How they're moving in the transfer window. Again, they're signing players that aren't big names as such, great players, but they're not sort of at the elite level, the Galacticals that we would have been signing in the past, and then pinning all our hopes on that player to bring us success. We've signed far too many, and I don't want to call them mercenaries, but other people might do, players that are looking for one last payday. Okay, we might win something, but I might get very rich in the process. Doesn't make any sense, but now they seem to be buying players that have got ambition, and there's a willingness to be at Manchester United and improve themselves and then earn a contract on top of that. And then this whole Ugarte move, I was talking to Joe Smith the other week on Stretford Paddock when we were doing the late, and I said I think that might be an option, that they might leave it as late as possible, because PSG probably do need to get rid of him and get him off the books. It's very similar to, we'll get on to McTominay, very similar to the McTominay situation. But Jamie Jackson's article, yeah, and Jamie's a very good friend of mine. I'm actually going for brunch with Jamie this week.
Well,
I'm not going to Greg, so you don't need to worry about it.
Well,
you went to America. You went to America.
Jamie, and I must have missed my invite to brunch. Yeah, that's a bit rude.
No, it's in Cheshire. So.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah,
I'm not allowed there.
Can't get
I burst into flames if I go into Cheshire. No, that's fair enough. Yeah, listen, I agree with everything you've said, but I feel like the success of this window boils down to the true success of it if we get a midfielder. I feel like, Omar Brada coming in as CEO makes sense. He knows football. He's been at Manchester City, and despite the 115 charges, they've had a lot of success, and you can't deny that. Also, you look at Jason Wilcox, again, was part of that City setup, did a lot of good work at the academy, has a very, very sterling reputation, comes into Manchester United from Southampton, I think, brings with him a lot of expertise, and like I said there, he's got a lot of kudos within the footballing world. You look at Dan Ashworth, there's a reason why we were going toe-to-toe, well, not going toe-to-toe, why Newcastle didn't want to let him go, why we wanted him. Again, success at Brighton, success with England, success with Newcastle. It all makes sense. Ruud van Nistelrooy, don't get me started, the best striker ever, and also had success at PSV. A 10 out of 10 move bringing him in. The signings so far have been good, yeah? Xerxes, good player, good debut. A player that, in all honesty, I expect Manchester United to be able to sign. Yeah? Yes. A Bologna striker who's got a buyout clause, which isn't ridiculous. We should be able to sign him. Doesn't mean that you can't be happy that we did. I am. We got him. De Ligt, a good signing. A player who I feel has, despite the fact he's been at 3 clubs already, has a very bright future ahead of him, because he's still only 25 and he's got that leadership quality. We saw him captaining Ajax when he was a teenager. He's obviously been at Juve, he's been at Bayern Munich, and despite people somewhat doubting him or criticising him a little bit, saying he didn't quite live up to the hype, he's won titles in all those clubs, so he's a very good player. A good deal as well, but a doable deal too. Let's not, pretend that it was like beyond the realms of possibility. Could have got him in. Mazraoui, again, a good debut. More or less a swap for Wan-Bissaka, wasn't it? We sold Wan-Bissaka, we bought Mazraoui. Again, I didn't want Wan-Bissaka to go. Me and you spoke about this extensively. I understand why the club wanted to bring Mazraoui in, different type of player, and judging him by his debut, he's got a lot to offer. Then you've got Lenny Yoro, probably the biggest coup of the transfer window for Manchester United, getting someone that was wanted by Real Madrid, but we know from Laurie Whitwell's article in The Athletic that he did have a bit of an injury. I mean, that doesn't mean that's, he's an 18-year-old, so one slight injury is not going to put you off him, and we did pay a little bit more than perhaps other clubs were willing to, but he potentially could be at United for the next decade, if not longer, and he's been regarded, or has been regarded, as one of the best centre-backs, young centre-backs in the world. So I get it all good signings, all positive signings, but I said this on Paddock and I'll say it again to you, Manchester United, right now as it stands, are weaker in midfield than we were at the back end of last season, and that for me isn't okay, because Me and you spoke extensive last season, and you did every time I spoke to you after a game where United had lost, and believe me, there was a lot of them, wasn't there? Whether it was the Bournemouth game, whether it was the Fulham game, whether it was the Brighton game, you kept flagging it up. Our midfield, running through our midfield, big holes in our midfield, the gap in our midfield. You were like a broken record. I don't blame you because you were right. Yes, Kobbie Mainoo came into that side, but it's not all about him. We need a midfielder. We lost Amrabat. Now, you might not rate Amrabat, but he was good enough to start in the FA Cup final. Casemiro is a bit older than he was. I don't buy into this idea that he's going to be able to play in the 6 on his own all of a sudden again. He ain't. We need a midfielder. So whilst we've had a good window, I think if we don't get that midfielder, we'll be in trouble.
I agree with you, but I don't think that you should basically write off the whole of the transfer window as not a success. Does it pin on that's it? If we don't get one, then it's all written off?
If it was a binary choice of has this window been a success?
Yeah.
If we don't get a midfielder,
would you rather us go? Say it right.
I'd struggle to say it's a success.
Ugarte is obviously the one that they want.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one that most fans want. And I think everyone agrees with your sentiment there that we do need a brand new midfielder at Manchester United. Because it was evident against Fulham the other night as well. The press was a lot better on Friday night, I thought. But what was also obvious was that when we lost the ball, how easy the transition was for Fulham to get into the attack. And because Casemiro hasn't got the pace and time is catching up. I thought he had a decent game, but you can't, again, say we're going into a season with him being the one person that's going to stop that, because he hasn't got it in his locker, and it seems to be leaving his body very, very quickly. But we definitely do need that. But I wouldn't write off the summer as being not a failure. I wouldn't say that, really.
So you think if we don't get a midfielder, it's still a success?
I'd rather. Well, is there another option to Ugarte? Because what could happen in this situation under the previous regime is if we don't get Ugarte, we'll get somebody else that probably isn't the one that we need or the one that we wanted.
I think under the last regime as well, I think they ignored centre midfield quite a lot.
Oh, they did, yeah. Well, we had the McFred scenario.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? You remember, like, the summer where we brought in, like, 5 players in almost deadline day.
Yeah.
And it was like, I know we brought in Van der Beek a little bit earlier, but with Van der Beek, Tellez, Cavani, Diallo, Palestre, and it was like, everyone was like, we need a DM, man. What's going on? It was like, oh, McFred will be all right. I know you love Fred, but he's not a DM, is he? And it was unfair to sort of ask him to play that role. Listen, I'm happy with all those signings. My worry is, when you scratch beneath the surface, we have had a good window so far. I'm not saying we haven't. Now, you look at it and you go, Varane's gone out, had injury issues. De Ligt's coming in. Hopefully, he won't have as many injury issues as Varane has, and he'll be our starting centre-back. For me, I think he's coming here to start games for Manchester United alongside Lisandro Martinez. Joshua Zirkzee, he'd probably, make a claim that he could start. Perhaps it'll be a bit of a toss-up between him and Rasmus Højlund. Maybe even he's going to be back up, but you never know. I mean, if he carries on like he did at the... on his debut, then there's every chance that he could start. So these are, signings where you go. Lenny Yore's another one who long-term fantastic signing, and obviously Mazraoui, a good option, and I loved what I saw the other night as well. It looks like a very progressive fullback. So these are all positive signings. My only concern is you've sort of improved slightly in terms of the starting 11. Yeah. Maybe you go, is De Ligt a little bit better than Varane?
Yeah.
Who else is going to start out?
There's been increments of improvement across the team and the squad.
I get all that. Yeah. My only issue is the midfield was such a problem last season. It was such a big problem. And you can't ignore the finishing 8th. That I worry that if we don't address it, it's going to undo all the good work of this window. That's my worry.
No, I completely get that. But you mentioned there, I think, every single player about them being players for the future. Now, the brand new positive, Mr. David Scott, that you've seen here today, wearing a blazer for this new lack of cynicism that I've found in my life, is that we're not building for this season. Yeah. We're building for future seasons. So the worst thing to do, if we don't get Ugarte, is buy someone that don't really want, and then we have to keep him.
But I understand that. My only sort of the two arguments I make that, if Ineos are serious, they should have more than one option.
Yeah.
I think there was rumours wanted that if we didn't get De Ligt or if we didn't get Yoro, we had other options. Branthwaite was another one we were looking at, or whoever, or the other way round. When we couldn't get Branthwaite, we went for De Ligt or whatever. So I get your point. I also wonder with Erik ten Hag as well, like, if the midfield is such a big issue for him personally, and if we don't address it, and if yes, long term, these are all great long term signings, and I'm about that, and I understand that. I'm going to get in some comments because I think a lot of people are talking about the fact that it's more long term, and I get that. My other concern would be if you don't address that midfield situation, and it ends up costing you games this season. I think it cost him his job.
No, I can agree with that.
I know I keep going on about his midfield. I'm sorry to bang on like, but it does worry me a lot the fact that we've done so much good stuff, and then we've actually weaker in midfield now than we were last season. You all know my thoughts on Sophie and Amrabat, and I think the worst case, at least bring him back on loan or something. Don't just not do anything or lose players.
Yeah, before you do that, just look at them likes. How many likes have we got there?
3.
Pathetic.
That's horrible.
And we're about to read out people's comments.
Yeah.
And they've not even pressed like.
This is like role reversal here. Loads of people praising you for being positive, moaning at me for being negative.
Well, no, that's good. It's a new dawn, a new day, a new David Scott.
This is the bizarro world.
Make sure you press and subscribe and like.
You just did that.
What? I don't know.
Mr. ITK Scotty. Burn Rubber says these are the uncles we all wanted. Greg G says we need a midfielder to see if we can have a partnership with Mainu. Miles says like the stream. Greg G says like the Keane, Scholes, Mainu and whoever. That's good. Miles says Jay, I'm thinking without a CM this window is still a good one, especially considering that it's Ineos first summer at the Reigns. I hear you. I just worry. Mason Burn Rubber says Mason playing with Cobbs would be alright. I think intelligent player, pressing monster, decent tackler. Ugarte would be a lovely addition, don't get me wrong. Miles says you never go full Fred. OG McFall says Jay's such a delusional, pessimistic downer of a bloke. You know,
nothing changes.
Nothing. Yeah. Now tell me my bad points. Kenny Allison says Jay, remember how our previous transfer windows have been. This window has been a vast improvement. It's going to take more than one window to sort us out. Aaron Moore says, I just hope that's not our transfer window done. Miles says, I think Collier will play a bigger role than we think this season. I like Collier. Aaron Moore says, I'd take Amrabat back 100%. Mick Holohan says, nice jacket, Mr. Scott. Heaven Soul says, tuning in on my Tesco run, lads. I really like what we've done this summer, but the DM is a huge factor. I think they're waiting on Amrabat or Rabiot as last minute signings. Jace Parker says, evening Jay, evening Scotty, love to see you. Miles says, we didn't sign Sabitzer because we knew Mainu was coming through. I think we haven't kept Amrabat because of Collier. So a couple of people there saying Toby Collier could get a lot of minutes. Listen, I like Toby Collier. I like what I've seen of him so far. I still feel like you need a central midfielder, but I don't want to be too much of a Debbie Downer. I've just got to be honest, it does worry me a lot.
Somebody mentioned something there about that we're not going to be able to do it in one window. And in the past, when we've got new managers in, whether it was Ten Hag or his predecessors, that was always span out that we're not going to be able to do it in one window. I didn't truly believe that because of the names and the sort of signings they were making during them summer. I thought, well, these are proven, these are pedigree players. These are players that have done it everywhere. When we're bringing them in, we're going to hit the ground running. This is the first time I've actually believed that cliche saying.
You think
with that, I don't think we'll be able to do it in one window, but this gives me the enough hope for future windows.
Do you know what was good about this window and future windows as well? Is I don't feel like when you look at the squad, like there's a massive overhaul needed. It's not like you do 4 players this window and then you've got to do another 5 in January or 3 in January, another 5 next summer. Yeah. There's a lot of players you've brought in are young players. Now in the past we brought in Casemiro when he was 30. And 2 years later, we're already looking at replacing him. Yeah. We brought in Erik when he's 30.
Did it with strikers though?
Yeah. And Ronaldo, a great example. What was he, 36? Cavani, 33 or 34. Ibrahimovic. So you're bringing in these players and you're going, right, well, we've not even loans, they're like signings, permanent signings. We've got to replace them within a year or two. These players, Yoro, De Ligt, Mazraoui, Xerxes, who am I missing? Am I missing one out? All long term. Yep. So you're right. I get that point. My sort of thing is I want, and yes, I'm selfish and impatient, I want us to at least be challenging for that top 4 this season. And I think without a midfield, I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
A little bit. And I know someone was saying there about Mount could maybe play alongside Mainu. I just feel like you're lacking an out-and-out ball winner there, or you're lacking someone who can really get a foot on the ball the way that you need. I think Mainu's good with someone like that alongside him, like a Casemiro, probably a younger version of Casemiro. Mount, I don't think he's quite that guy. I know that
you need someone who's got a little bit more of the shithousery about them in that position.
You know what I mean?
Mason Mount seems too much of a nice chap to be doing that sort.
Maybe in a couple of years it is Toby Collier can fill that role. I just feel like this window, without it, we struggle. The one thing I will say though is this: after all that pessimism and negativity, I do think United will sign a midfielder this summer.
Yeah,
I do. because we were saying this on the Paddock podcast, and I know for one thing I know is that I know fuck all, right? I know less than Ineos. I know less than Erik. I know less than Jason Wilcox and Dan Ashworth and all them lot. And even I know we need a midfielder. So the chances that they don't are non-existent, right? Yep. They will know Manchester United need to sign a midfielder. They will just have their own plan on how that is going to happen. So I believe we will. Do
you think that it was surprising that the Ugarte move or signing a centre midfielder wasn't one of the first things that we tried to do?
I think.
You know what I mean? Obviously, you can only go around getting players when they're available. But if that is such a priority as everybody thinks it is, that we haven't gone out and.
I'm hoping that there will be a little bit of a plan here where they've gone right. We got Xerxes because of his buyout clause, and we wanted to act quickly before anyone else came in.
Yeah, because Milan were after him.
Milan were after him. Then I think it went cool there, but in case someone else suddenly decided, because strikers are in short supply anyway, and all you need is Chelsea or someone to go, well, we'll have him, or we want him, and then all of a sudden you're into a bidding war, which you don't want to get into. So that one was sort of the one that was, I think, the straight away, wasn't it? Yep. Lenny Yoro, we obviously had to act because Real Madrid was sniffing around him, and I think there was a feeling that, look, we can get him now if we go pretty turbo on it. Let's make that happen. Mazraoui and De Ligt was obviously a double deal. Again, other clubs were looking at, I think De Ligt is a popular player, and it was like, look, we can make this happen now. The thing with a guy, according to Jamie Jackson, what he's sort of alluding to here is that United feel like we can get a better deal if we wait. Whereas with all those players I've mentioned, it would have been worse to wait because we probably wouldn't have got him.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense, and it's sort of logic that I wouldn't put past Sergio and Ratcliffe. But I'm really positive and looking forward to the season. Make sure you're subscribing and liking. Well, let's talk about players in. What about players out? Obviously, Scott McTominay's been all over the news today, and there seems to be this, if Scott wants to leave, he can leave. We're not going to force him out the door. How are you feeling about that? Because
I think, to give you a politician's answer, because I know you love your politics.
You're going to lie to me?
Sort of. Not really. Kind of twist it. I think McTominay will leave this summer, and I think history will be kind to Scott McTominay about his time at Manchester United. Right. I think fans will look back with a bit of fondness, and he'll get a good reception when he comes back to Old Trafford, playing for Fulham or whoever. I think now would be the right time for him to go. Yeah,
I can't imagine Scott McTominay wants to stay at United knowing that they don't want him if they haven't sort of verbalised. You know what, nobody wants to stay anywhere they're not wanted, do they?
I don't know, like sometimes, I get your point. Sometimes I think players can get comfortable because you're on a decent wage, you've been here since you were 7 or 8 or whatever. You still play, people look at Scott McTominay, right? I think he plays like 40 odd games.
Yeah, he's not left in the canteen eating with the kids like Sancho.
And he's not like one of Chelsea's 57 players where half of them can't even get in the canteen.
You can't even get a car park.
Yeah, honestly. It's crazy what is going on at Stamford Bridge, and long may it continue. So even when he's not first choice, he still features and he still gets games in cup finals and, big games and sort of, top of the table class, whatever. He's played a lot of big games for Manchester United. So he might look at it and go, look, I've been here since a kid, I'm on a decent wage, I still feature quite a lot. However, I do think you're right. I do think it's more likely that he's thinking, look, I'm not going to be a regular starter. I'm not that guy. The manager doesn't really fancy me. And if I've got the opportunity to go, now might be the time to go. I think certainly from Manchester United point of view, now is the time to move him on. Because he scored a load of goals last season, a load of important goals for club and country. He's 27, so he's still on the right side of being youngish, but certainly, football.
If you're under 45, then you're still young.
Good lad, well done. And also the fact that, from a United point of view as well, if you wait a little bit longer, I've seen his Paddock podcast, then you might not be able to sell him for the price you'll get for him. If you get 25, 30 million from this summer, if you wait till next summer, you're going to get that for him, especially if he doesn't feature as much. He might come off the back of the season where he's played 20 odd or 30 games, scored 4 goals, and everyone's like,
Yeah, he's not going to get a better sort of showcase of his talent on display than he has last season for the goals that he scored. And you're right, and I think he's tried his best. His attributes, the ceiling of them, aren't equipped for what Manchester United want to go on to where we want them to be challenging for league titles or in Europe. He hasn't got that in him.
No,
that's not his fault. He's never got. I've never seen, and some people will use it as a critique against him. I've never seen Scott McTominay go on the pitch and not try. I've seen other players who are paid a shitload more, who supposedly have a similar sort of loyalty to McTominay, not be arsed walking around the pitch. I've seen that. So, and I think that because he's had that effort, and you've critiqued him for just running around and not doing a lot with the ball, but he does look like he wants to try and do something.
I think
like when your dad played football with you and a kid, and he can't do it anymore, but he wants.
I think there's a ceiling to Scott McTominay.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to his all-round midfield play, I think in terms of going into the box later on and getting goals, his finishing as well. He's very good. His finishing. If you look at some of the goals he scores, his finishing is class. It really is. He's not just getting his head on.
Arriving late into the box.
Yeah, you saw them 2 goals against Brentford. I think one of them, the finishing was superb. But I feel like if you're looking at general build-up and attacking play and bringing in players around him, and also just reading the game, there's a big criticism of Scott McTominay. Sometimes he goes missing. I don't think it's necessarily he's not wanting to show for the ball. I think he doesn't always have the awareness of other players.
He hasn't got that capability.
Yeah, where he's like people. It's an underrated trait of Bruno's. He's always there. Yeah. He's always showing for the ball. He's always about. He can find that space so you can pass to him. He does it so well, and people just ignore that. And I think sometimes Scott McTominay struggles with those little things. So I don't think he's a bad player. He's not. He's a very, very talented footballer. I've said it on many occasions. Is he good enough for Manchester United? He has been over the last few years. He's played a lot of games for Manchester United. Is he good enough for Manchester United if we want to kick on to the next level? Probably not. And I think that if we are going to sort of get a better balance in midfield and move forward, then perhaps it's Scott McTominay that would need to make way, because unfortunately for him as well, he's one of the few players we've got who not only is maybe slightly surplus requirements, but also could fetch a good fee. Yeah. Because everyone's going, Casemiro to Saudi Arabia. Really? Okay, when's that bid coming in? Because I haven't seen it yet.
Would you keep Casemiro out of the two of them?
If I could get,
if you had to choose,
if I could get 30 million for one or the other, I'd get 30 million for Casemiro the route with Scott McTominay. Casemiro's a much more talented player than Scott McTominay, in my opinion. But Casemiro's past his best, and I don't think Scott McTominay necessarily is. I think Casemiro's got the highest ceiling. Yeah. I just don't know how often Casemiro's going to get anywhere near it. And I think people have got on a bit. People have got on a bit of a hype, haven't they? Because he had a decent game in the Community Shield. He had a decent game against Fulham.
Oh, you've been reading my blog.
But he's been a bit further up the pitch, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I want him, or what we need, is someone sitting in front of the defence, and I don't know if he's that guy.
No, he isn't. But I mean, there was a great line. I think it was Jonathan Liu in the Guardian.
There's a sentence you don't hear very often.
And it was
Jonathan Liu.
Casemiro's cheeks looked more. Is it concave? Is that the?
Convex,
whatever. Then yeah.
What's convex? Is convex inwards or concave inwards?
It's concave, and cave is in. I think he was making reference to Casemiro losing a little bit of the
bit
weight
of timber
that he might have had last season.
But yeah, we noticed that in
concave. Concave is the sucking in.
I think you were right. Yeah,
of course I was right. I've written a book. Make sure you're subscribing and liking. Should we talk about the game? Because I've not actually spoke to you since Friday. I imagine you spoke to Def about how great we were against Fulham. Were we great?
Right. I thought we were all right.
It was better than Wolves last season.
Jesus,
the first game. There's the bar. So if you're comparing like for like, it's an improvement, and we're going to win the league.
No, listen, I don't think you can argue
Europa
with
League?
that. I think it's safe to say that Joshua Zirkzee is going to score at least 30 goals this season.
That was a Ruud van Nistelrooy finish, that.
Yeah, that was very good.
It really was. Big old toe bung. You don't want to see that. That's the skill that not many tight strikers have these days.
No.
Get your toe on it, lad.
Love that. The atmosphere was great, and a clean sheet as well. So what more do you want?
Well, that's what I'm asking you. What were the worries?
Midfield still worries me. I know I'm a broken record.
We've literally spoke for half an hour about.
You asked me what the worry was, and then you don't want me to tell you what the worry was.
You know what you worry about, like.
You didn't say tell me what the worry was, but don't mention midfield.
Why are you going to fix it?
You tell me what the worry. Yeah, fucking hell, you see me play. That would be a disaster. So that is a slight worry.
In the performance, was there? Did you see any players that should have done better then, rather than sort of focus on the midfield issues? Was there anyone?
Mount off the ball was very good. On the ball, I want to see a bit more.
Yeah,
I think on the overall, I was a little bit underwhelmed by him. But then, I saw a lot of people saying, if you actually look at his work off the ball, he's a bit better. And also, I was saying this on the podcast, it was a weird game because it was sort of like back at Old Trafford, first time, Friday night. There was a lot of, you've been there millions of times where you're chatting and watching a game and you're not as
focused on it.
So you're not noticing maybe some of the off the ball stuff that perhaps you should. So I said this on the Paddock podcast, maybe it was a little bit harsh on Mount, and I was a bit like, well, what did he do? People pointing out he did a lot of good stuff off the ball. I thought Maguire was very good. I really did. I thought he carried the ball.
Yeah, he had a great game, Maguire.
I thought he put in some good challenges in aerially, as he always does. He was imperious. Also, I was impressed with Maynez. He got done early doors and then he fixed himself up, and I thought he had the beating of Adama Traore. And who else was there who impressed me? I think there's a few players who did all right. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll tell you who impressed me as well, the new kid, Mazraoui.
Yeah, he had a great game, didn't he? He was up on the watch-along for being one of the men of the match.
Yeah. So I think it was a good performance rather than a great. It was all right.
I know we can sort of say, a bit rusty after pre-season. A lot of the players didn't really get much of a pre-season due to the international tournament. But are you not fearful with the lack of how clinical we are? Because that was an issue last season. We spoke extensively about the midfield, and hopefully the defensive issues have been sorted with the new signings. Xerxes looks like he's going to help, but he's more of an attacking midfielder in my mind. I think he might get pushed up to a number 9, but he likes to run with the ball from deep. If you look at the Fernandes chances, he should have scored them. You look at the Garnacho chance. He should have. Do you know? Because Ten Hag last year, I think it's about September last year, said we need to be more clinical.
Yeah, there's a link to our Patreon in the chat as well. If you can support the channel, we appreciate your support. Helps keep the lights on. If you can join our Patreon. Yeah, I mean the Garnacho one at the end. I saw Marcus Rashford got a lot of criticism. Wasn't a great ball from him. I think it was. Neither of them covered themselves in glory. I don't think it was a great ball. The weight of pass wasn't great from Marcus, and I think Garnacho still should have scored. Player of his ability, it was a poor pass, but I think he's got enough in the locker to score. Just didn't happen. It's not the end of the world. Fernandes had a bit of a frustrating game for me. I love Bruno, but I thought he was decision making and
it wasn't great. Was it?
Yeah, he kept trying to force things, and that's part of the thing with Bruno. You take the rough with the smooth because he'll try and force things.
Yang with that lad, isn't it?
Yeah. When it does come off, he does things that other players just can't do. But yeah, we were a little bit. I don't know if wasteful is the right word. I think I get your point about not being clinical enough, and maybe wasteful is the right word. But we need to improve. But I do feel there was an element of, first day back at school.
Yeah, but when you look at how the other teams played, because I was really happy on Friday and I watched how our competitors performed over the weekend, and I thought, it feels like it's going to be really, really competitive this year, more so than last year, and everyone was beating everyone. Well, everyone seemed to be beating us that they shouldn't have any right doing. But
I don't think you can look too much into that game against Fulham, because I understand your point, but I feel like.
But if they score, my point is, if they score those goals, it could have been 4-0.
Yeah.
And then I think it's a little bit of a different, because there is a cautious optimism. Before the game, I couldn't keep Joe Smith off the frigging ceiling. You talk about that. I'm not talking because of his height. No, he was dancing around, very excited.
He was.
And that might have rubbed off for me, Jay. That might be why I'm all like this. I've got like Joe Smith's dust.
Yeah, Joe Smith's dust is,
very infectious.
It is.
No priory for that.
Very addictive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think good to see Solo in the chat. I feel that. Listen, I get your point. Another day we would have had 3 or 4, and it'd be like everyone would be raving about it. I thought it was a decent performance. I wasn't going to say it's amazing. The one thing I will say is I feel like there was a lot of pressure on the team as well, because what happened against Fulham last time, we needed a win. I think if we'd have lost that game, Erik's and I was in all sorts of trouble.
That was huge. It was a must-win game for me.
I said that before the game. Like a couple of people like, really, and I was like, no, certainly not a mustn't-lose game. And I feel like might have seeped through to the players. You're like, you know what, we need to get off on the right foot. Might add a little bit to it, especially when you're in front of the home fans. But listen, a solid performance. We got the result. Xerxes got his goal, a clean sheet. We've got a much tougher test, I feel, this weekend against Brighton. Early kick-off. But I fancy us for that as well. I think Brighton did have a very good result against Everton. But
I mean, it's Everton.
It is Everton.
Right, before you wrap up, I do this every week and I forget to... I ask people to give us the questions on Twitter or X, what it's now known. So we can do a quick fire round if you wish. Right, good vibes, John, Mr. John Shin.
Oh, hello.
He said, are United fans allowed to sing Oasis songs? Well, me and Jay would be in lots of trouble if not.
Yeah, of course you are. Listen, don't let the fact that, them two plastic city morons always
the Celtic fans, anyway.
Exactly.
Connor, what condiment would you use for a bacon butter, assuming there's no red? You can't have red. Or brown sauce. I knew you'd be a red sauce type of guy. Because that's like karma of the condiments. It's a karma.
I have red sauce on everything, mate. I love red sauce.
I tell you. Right.
Barbecue.
Right, that's fine. What's your...
that's fine. Are you the judge? That's fine. Yeah,
it's better than ketchup.
It's acceptable.
It's like a spicy ketchup. What's your favourite holiday destination and why? That's Gary for 1989.
Waste.
Who would you prefer for midfield out of the names being
For
bandied
what?
about?
Midfield.
No, for Madfield.
Midfield.
Madfield.
Hey,
Like,
go on. It's like
yeah.
Serge out of Beverly Hills Cop.
Midfield.
Signing. Right, go on.
Shut up, you dick. You broke me now. I'm gonna do. I've got an impression in my head, but I'm not going to do it. I can't. It'd be terrible. I'll die.
Right, okay.
Who would you prefer for Medfield?
Medfield. Ahmed Foley's here. Hey? Right, go on. You can do this. You've done it before.
Who would you prefer to play in the centre mid out of the names being bandied around?
Out of the names being bandied about, I'd go with your guy. I mean, it's not exactly like we've had a whole host of amazing names. No disrespect to the Sander Berges of this world, but
Who? Sandra who?
Sander Berge. It does feel that like your guy is the star name.
Okay.
You can say that about him.
Burn Rubber thought that when I put the post up, I swear to F, I thought it was an obituary for Jay when I first glanced at it, and it scared the shit out of myself. So at least you'll have one person going the more on your death when it finally comes. Yeah, long overdue.
It won't get cancelled due to lack of interest.
Yeah, make sure you're subscribing and liking. Thank you, everybody who's watched today. Any last comments before we go? Or is that all right?
We've still got producer Ethan. Is it all right to stop the stream in a minute for us? Oh, I can do it, can't I?
Producer Ethan's got his headphones on.
It's all right, I can do it.
Yeah, are we still recording? Oh, he's
no, we're live.
We're just going to say goodbye, Ethan.
It's all right. Ethan is.
Oh, we've got two producers now, right?
Our cup runneth over.
Are we looking into this one or this one? There's too many cameras.
No, that's a single, but we're not.
But they're both, no, they're single. Two's a plural, double.
That's a single for your single, but you don't need to worry about that.
Why should this one here?
Yeah. But
that one?
We're just using the wide.
I can't work out.
Like, look, point at the wide. See?
That one.
That's down. No,
that
the wide is. See how it's down the barrel?
Yeah, but
yeah.
Right. Okay.
So we're not using that one. That's a single for you.
We have too many cameras.
We don't need a single. We don't on you. That was from a
well, we did need a single just on me. Anyway, I've been positive Scotty. That's been cynical Motty. We shall be back this time next week when I imagine that the roles will reverse and we've been spanked by Brighton. Failing that, I'll be very happy again. See you soon.